All right, everybody, welcome back to Along the Watchtower. It is a podcast where we just try and, I just cover the news as best as I can and give my opinion on it, and try and sift through the bull. I mean, there is definitely. I mean, that's how media works, unfortunately. And you're thinking to yourself, well, I thought journalism was the fifth estate, the coverage of what is supposed to be the inner workings of our government, the machinations of governance, and what's happening both up above us in the executive and within us in our at our local level. No, that's not how this works, because everything is too costly. It's too costly to run a media company that isn't profit driven. It's just that simple. There seems to, because technology has made news, as it were, so easily accessible, like anything else, like music, like media. Anyone can become a musician. Anyone can become a director, right? And make an effectively good-looking movie with a relatively low budget, in terms of making a movie. And the same thing with journalism. Anyone with a high-def phone, right, with a subsequently a high def camera can cover a story if you can hold it straight, right? Like steady, like geez, how many movies have been made with steady cams where people are literally running around holding the camera and they have the hands of a surgeon, right, while they're running in action, no less. So if you can mimic that, which a lot of people have, we've seen tons and tons of footage from a myriad of different events that have occurred over the years, whether it be Facebook Live murders or riots being covered, everything, people being beaten in the streets. We seem to be able to cover the macabre very easily and quickly. We've become very adept with the technology and desensitized to the situation and the people suffering in them. So we cover all sorts of craziness. And anyone can do that. Anyone can have good footage, can articulate and speak in an emergency, and mind you, the whole time not assist in said emergency. Which there's always been that sort of that sort of chasm where, as a journalist in for example, a war zone, how do you cover the brutality of a war without empathizing with those who suffer in it? Helping the destitute and broken. How do you not participate in any degree? You know what I mean? And so that's how you have war journalists coming back with PTSD, etc. And there's a lot of great stories. People who covered the Rwandan genocide, the Congolese civil wars, etc. Yes, most of this is in Africa. Yay! But I digress. I didn't really have the energy to do a show. Make sure my collar's straight. To do a show on Friday, I am exhausted by the amount of coverage there is. Okay, so check this out. Here's the thing about particular things. There's a flood of news, literally moment to moment. For those of you watching and listening who are fellow, curiosos, right? Who just want to understand the things that are going on, the machinations, the ins and outs, the wheeling and dealing of Capitol Hill. That between congressional coverage, right, Senate court reporters and things like that, and just the different news outlets that aren't mainstream media, right? It's overwhelming. And then you have local news, which local news is always best. They're the first usually to cover something in the most unadulterated way possible, right? You get things from AP and Newsmax, and that's after it's been whitewashed and regurgitated and gone through and processed. You get unadulterated things from local news, and even that has been chewing the fat, burning the midnight oil. And it's like, wow. And there's just, and you have to wonder, is it? I forgot what this sociological principle is called, but when you have to wonder if there is just a increase of events, of incidents that are noteworthy and usually negative, unfortunately, or is the media simply covering the negativity more? And I think at certain times they obviously emphasize the negativity, but there definitely has to be something to be said about an increase of particular types of activities, particular political ones, particular violent ones, particular nonviolent ones, environmental ones, when you start to see things of a similar ilk happening repeatedly, you should take notice. It's nothing to dismiss. But I digress. Oh, there's so much to cover. There's still obviously fallout from He Who Shall Not Be Named. I really want that to trend. I want people to stop saying his name. What happens when you stop saying his name? But then you have to think, we're supposed to be adults, right? We're supposed to be mature adults, able to understand and acknowledge the mistakes that are made collectively by the country, good or bad, happy or sad, and then move on and grow from them. So in fact, I don't want that to it would be I would personally love it. I can't even stop laughing right now. I would personally love it. I would love it. I'm tired of hearing his name. I'm really tired of talking about him. The thing that I'm not so much tired of talking about is the repercussions in terms of the reaction. Because it's like, yes, there should be repercussions for a man like him becoming president, obviously. But the sorts of heavy-handed, arch-villain, Orwellian, draconian, authoritarian measures that we're seeing being taken by government, by the Silicon left, is more than I can stand. It's more than I can stomach in my little weeby stomach. So yeah, fine. Trump. There's more fallout from Trump, whether it be the Capitol Hill siege, whether it be just his own presidency. So let's see here. We got a bit of an itinerary today. There was a mass shooting in Indianapolis that I barely know anything about. There's not really a lot of information. Let me stop. There's information coming out about it. There's not a lot of information being pushed about it because people are too busy talking about the MAGA Patriot Party FEC filing. Yeah, you heard me correct. Though Trump has not said that he has any connection to it, you know that there was this darkness, this seeping sardonic energy in the air that was suggesting he might start his own political party. So we don't know. I mean, the whole thing about it is like, even if he doesn't start his own political party, a political party, if not more, because I think there already is a political party or two started as a byproduct of the Trump era, will still crop up. Right, the fracturing of the because there's two battles going on. It's the progressives within the Democratic Party trying to stave off the establishment now that the Democrats have a ever so slight majority, and within the GOP, within the Republican Party, you have more traditionalist GOP conservatives versus the Trumpers. Period, and so we'll get to that. There's a Republican senator who is not going to be seeking re-election in Ohio. Yeah, in Ohio. So that puts a major state in a major electoral state in play for the midterms in a Democratic slight majority. So this isn't going to stop anytime soon. In fact, it's going to get worse, and as we approach the midterms, it's going to exponentially get worse. There's so little news coming out about like the domestic terrorism, the actual domestic terrorism. For example, like the Aspen bombing and the Nashville bombings. I was thinking about reading the update, but there is spoiler alert, there is no update. They have no information, and it's literally a month later. And all we know is that they haven't determined a motive. The information he sent out was, alternative conspiratorial type, but it wasn't indicative of someone committing political violence. The only thing that seems to have any connective tissue is that he was an IT consultant, the Nashville bomber, whose name escapes me. He was an IT consultant, and he blew up basically an AT&T communications building that caused severe communication disruptions, not only among the civilian populace, but for the U.S. military. So basically, folks are leaning, like I was saying initially, towards a utilities attack, more towards like a beta test. And the same thing with the Aspen bombing. They literally have nothing. They have nothing They have Earth First. Earth First denied claim. They did not denied claim. They denied having any involvement in it and basically said we're a decentralized group that anyone can just write Earth First on anything, which has happened in the past, and take claim. And we didn't do it officially. And there hasn't been a environmental terrorist attack in the last decade. So that's the update. That's the update on that. So we could just, there you go. That's done. Fauci took the Moderna jab, right? He took the Moderna shot, right? He passed out after he took the second one. So we'll talk about that. There's a bit of COVID news. And yeah, they're investigating the AEFIs, right? The adverse effects from immunization, the anaphylactic reactions. And we haven't heard anything. So yeah, we'll talk about a few things here. But yeah, before we get into it, please like, share, and subscribe if you like what I'm doing. Always trying to get better, working up towards that sure. When the sure happens, I'm telling you, I'm going to sound silky smooth. It's going to be fantastic, amazing, phantasmagorical. Can't wait. And I'm sure you can't either. That said, let's do it. This is actually pretty horrible to just jump into, but they have made an arrest regarding the Indianapolis mass shooting that left 5 people, including a pregnant mother, dead. Now that is an unfortunate, a highly unfortunate first. You never usually hear about, like a pregnant mother being involved, and that's a great thing. You don't want that to be a common factor. But they also don't think that this was random. So ABC News reads, Indianapolis police announced Monday they have arrested a juvenile suspect in connection with a mass shooting that claimed the lives of 5 people, including a pregnant teen. Oh, jeez. The 19-year-old woman's unborn child was killed in the shooting. A boy suffered a gunshot wound and was taken to a nearby hospital. Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department Chief Randall Taylor called the incident the city's largest mass casualty shooting in over a decade. While removing the alleged perpetrator of yesterday's mass murder from our neighborhoods does not bring back the lives seamlessly lost, hopefully it will bring us one step closer to healing. The Indianapolis PD said it will not disclose the full identity of the suspect or release a photo due to his age. Police do not believe other suspects were involved. They received a 911 call before 4 a.m. Sunday and discovered a boy shot at the 3300 block of East 36th. The boy was taken to the hospital and is expected to survive. Officers then went to the 3500 block of Adams Street and found 5 people dead inside a house. The victims were identified as Kezzy Childs, 42, Raymond Childs, 42, Kiara Hawkins, 19, Elijah Childs, 18, and Rita Childs, 13. Hawkins was pregnant and rushed to a hospital, but doctors could not save her or her unborn child. He murdered a family. Wow. This does not appear to be random. The mayor was emotional during the news conference and said that he called the U.S. Attorney's Office and the FBI to investigate. And yeah, they arrested him, or her. I mean, I'm presuming it's a male. Most males, statistically speaking, are more likely to commit violent acts than females. But Kezzy Childs, 42, Raymond Childs, 42, those are the parents. And then Elijah Childs and Rita Childs. And then Kiara Hawkins was pregnant. Yeah, it's the whole family. Wow. Okay, so a 17-year-old, they actually haven't, they're not saying whether it's a male or female. So they say, Fox News says, a 17-year-old suspect was arrested in the deaths of 6 people. Originally, police were called out. Yes. Following further investigation, police were dispatched to the street where they discovered multiple people shot. Fox actually names the baby boy Hawkins, the unborn child of Kiara Hawkins. That's considerate of them, actually. Local news. This is the local Fox station. See what I mean? Local news. Due to the suspect being a juvenile, name and photo are not being released. This may change if the suspect is waived to adult court. Oh, yeah, for sure. The suspect is said to be a member of the family. See, local news always has this is what I'm talking about. But besides, admonishing that, this is obviously horrible. But I just want to point out this is what I mean about local news. So we all figured that it was probably a member of the family. I could speculate, but I mean, I think we're all probably thinking the same thing to some degree. I mean, I don't want to go and speculate on the show because the article doesn't have any information. It's just the mayor's statement. But that's that little bit of information actually kind of not explains, but kind of gives it a much clearer picture. Oh, okay. So I just saw, for those listening, article in the top right for the same local Fox News station. A teen tells Indiana police that older brother murdered 6 in family home. So as we now that they've said it, I feel like I feel more comfortable saying it. That's what I kind of figured, is that a young male within his family murdered his family. That's not unheard of. In fact, that's usually the case in cases like these when you see an entire family slaughtered or murdered, or it's usually a young son. So let's read this from the same local Fox News station. Detectives from Indianapolis PD Violent Crime Unit arrived overnight to arrest a teenager accused of killing 6 people in his parents' home. The teen will likely be charged in Superior Court as an adult, we figured. The report obtained by the local station recounts the account that we already know of. Officers who first arrived on the scene discovered the suspect's young brother. That was the young child that was found on the street. And then they went to the house where they found the parents, Kezzy and Raymond, their 18-year-old son Elijah, and their daughter Rita, and then 19-year-old Kiara Hawkins. Kiara Hawkins evidently is not related. I mean, obviously her death is equally as horrible, but, just pointing things out. Investigators have not announced the name of the father of the child. The last piece. I wonder if the perpetrator is the father. In custody is a 17-year-old male, while a younger brother is still hospitalized. Right, that was the child. It's the younger teen who first alerted police to the horrific scene. Yeah. The boy said, they killed my family. While the initial report indicated upon his arrival at the emergency room, the youth told officers that everyone in his home had been shot and that his older brother was the gunman. Yeah. When detectives interviewed the boy at the hospital, he told the police that his older brother had been reprimanded by his father for leaving the home without permission, and the son was told the issue would be resolved later, but that the teen disagreed. It was then, the boy said, that while he was downstairs in the home with his parents, they heard gunfire upstairs and his sister yelling, "He shot them," followed by the sound of more gunshots. The teen then said his older brother came downstairs with a Draco gun, a handgun that shoots rifle rounds, and started shooting. A Draco gun. I've never heard of that. The boy said he ran out to the side of the home, his brother pursuing him and firing away, which would account for the 4 shots the neighbors heard. They only heard those. Because we have found that young man who suffered some gunshot wounds, significant wounds, he pointed us in the direction of the address, which we had no idea what we would find when we walked in there. Throughout the day Sunday, relatives and friends gathered on the street seeking answers and access to the house, and at one point asking Fox to get word out that a 15-year-old relative was unaccounted for. That teen was in the hospital. Also missing was his older brother. Several hours later, detectives tracked the youth to Plainfield, where he was placed under arrest. The police would not disclose if he was taken into custody with any evidence that would link him to the murders, nor if the youth made any statement to investigators. One neighbor told Fox News that she had provided officers with specific information that would permit them to track the absent teen. There have been 21 homicides in Indianapolis thus far this year, putting the city's 2021 murder tally well ahead of last year's record pace. For the time being, the youth is being housed in the juvenile detention facility, though investigators have until Thursday to file charges. we have a problem in our community, said the mayor, where people don't know how to deal with their conflict except with a gun or a blade. Well said. Um, yeah, it's going to be a very strange pivot into politics from that. But that is startling. The only thing that I can say about that is the Mendoza brothers, the twins that shot. This was something that took place late 80s, early 90s. The Mendoza brothers were these two rich brothers that murdered their parents. They shotgun blasted them in the face, something along those lines, or in the back of the head, something along those lines. And they begged and pleaded and cried and made this whole defense on the stand. And obviously, they were found guilty. I'm not sure. They went to prison. I'm not sure what happened to them. But the point I'm trying to get to is they murdered them for their money because they were rich and wealthy. But in this case, this is not that any of that is ever justified, but this is for even pettier a reason, right? The inability to communicate leaves what, right? We have a situation here where disagreements, even amongst the closest members of your family, who you're supposed to be able to relate to, communicate with, and have a dialogue with, leads not only to violence but leads to the ending of your life. That sort of inability, and here's the thing: it may not necessarily be prevalent among family members, but it is certainly prevalent within communities, and it certainly is prevalent amongst the populace at large within America. The discourse is gone, and I guess that'll be the pivot. Like, man, you can't even get sent to your room without worrying about being murdered. And what is a Draco gun? All right. So we will follow that as that develops, unfortunately. All right. So watchdog probes if DOJ officials tried to overturn the election. So what ended up happening? Oh no, I didn't bring up the article. What ended up happening is that apparently let me read this, because it should talk about it. Yes, okay, it's gonna talk about it, because I'm like, what is this guy's name? But the assistant attorney general actually agreed with Trump, while the attorney general Barr at the time did not want to pursue any investigation into election fraud, any electoral challenges, anything like that. He wasn't biting. So apparently, Clark, that's his name. What's this guy's name? Jeffrey Clark, Assistant Attorney General Jeffrey Clark, was kind of, I don't want to use the term colluding, but that seems to be what was happening, colluding with Trump to some degree to have Trump fire Barr be replaced by Clark, and then have the special investigation go down, etc. Right. So let's read AP. The Justice Department's Inspector General is launching an investigation to examine any former or current department officials engaged in an improper attempt to overturn the results of the 2020 election. Inspector General Michael Horowitz said Monday that the investigation will investigate allegations concerning the conduct of former and current Justice Department officials, but will not extend to other government officials. The Justice Department watchdog investigation follows a report in the New York Times, that a former Assistant Attorney General, Jeff Clark, had been discussing a plan with then-President Donald Trump to oust the acting Attorney General and try to challenge the results of the 2020 race by saying there had been widespread election fraud. How can you fall? Anyway, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer demanded the Inspector General launch a probe into this attempted sedition. The New York Democrats said it was unconscionable that a Trump Justice Department leader would conspire to subvert the people's will. Really? This is the thing. Let me finish. The Watchdog's probe is part of a growing number of efforts underway to investigate the attempts by Trump and his allies to subvert the election results. And then they go into speculation Also on Monday, the voting machine company Dominion Systems filed. Oh my God, yes, we'll read about this. Dude, this election lawsuit. Okay, ready? So let me finish this and then I'll fly into it. Also on Monday, the voting machine company Dominion Systems filed a defamation suit against Trump's personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani, for his repeated false claims about widespread voting fraud in the election. Okay. Okay, I can go now. I just wanted to get through the article before I flew into something. Okay, so what's where to begin? Okay, so here's the thing. Chucky always is verbose or dramatic. It is unconscionable. I'm gonna try not to yell. Right, that was that deep breath, that woosah. The reality of politics is that bias is everywhere. You will never hear me admire or admonish or support violence, especially with as an aim or as a means of political action. It's not effective, especially in the long term. That being said, there is no solidarity amongst the political arena currently, and even to use the term arena is indicative of competition. And and that's the thing. There's healthy competition, right? We talk about the friction of the opposing parties, the two-party system at the very least. We want more than two, but the two-party system is supposed to have a healthy friction that creates good policy between the two of them. You take ideas from some, you take ideas from the other. There you go. That's not how it works, okay? The reality is that we went through probably the most politically biased administration since Nixon, I would say. The level of malevolence that was being expressed both within and without the White House, the administration, and just in general this country is something I've never seen personally, except back in 2001, right? Post 9/11, all that same level of animosity was turned outward, and as a nation, we all looked towards, unfortunately, Islam. We looked towards a religion. We looked towards a religion. We dovetailed it with a culture, and then hated like the culture. That's the interesting thing, because you can have Muslims who obviously are not. You can have Arabs that are not Muslim, right? You have plenty of Arabic Jewish people, for example. Arabic Egyptians, Arabic Africans. But we took the hate of Islam, the Islamophobia, turned it towards, in particular, the particular culture of Arabs, and just decided to hate all Arabs. I digress. The point is that we live now in an openly biased and politically partisan society, and the politically expedient thing is to pretend that we don't. Okay, so when he says it's unconscionable, it's like, really? Do you really? Okay, we went through 4 years of Russiagate, millions and millions of dollars, just for you and your investigation to provide conclusive, categorical evidence that the DNC participates wholesale in the same type of corruption. It was ineffectively, not erroneously, ineffectively suggesting that Trump was engaging in, right? Now, there's a difference between erroneously and effect, like doing something out of error and doing something, poorly, or two different things. They did a poor job of providing evidence to what they were suggesting. There's plenty of corruption to go around. What that ended up doing was uncovering things like Burisma, Christopher Steele, the Operation Hurricane, I forgot something hurricane, in which they were basically illegally using FISA warrants to spy on a domestic citizen, that domestic citizen at the time being presidential candidate. I digress. So for him to suggest, like, oh my God, it's unconscionable that a Justice Department official, really in any administration, would be politically biased is hilarious, and it's just more bullshit, more grandstanding. Of course this makes sense. Trump was pulling out all the stops. But I just want to point that out. It's just like, it just reminds me of Cory Booker and his level of grandstanding. But secondly, Dominion Systems and the lawsuit. Here's the thing. I think that lawsuit will probably play for a while in court. I think because right now that lawsuit is like 1 point something billion. It's absurd, right? Isn't it? Wasn't it? Hold on. Let's find out. Let's find out because I'm pretty sure it was something. Hold on, Rudy Giuliani lawsuit. I could have swore 1.3 billion. It's $1 billion lawsuit. It's like, first of all, that's not gonna fly. That number isn't gonna fly. I think what'll happen is he'll probably settle, and that's because he couldn't keep his mouth shut with the level of allegation he was levying. He couldn't hack it, and it's like there are simple things he could have pointed out. I will always point to the adjudication log, which everyone acknowledges was missing, but no one. But I digress. See, it's the erroneous and slanderous things that he said and couldn't prove that he's being sued for. And but let's move on here. Trump lawyer Giuliani faces 1.3 billion lawsuit over big lie. The U.S. This is Reuters. U.S. voting machine company Dominion filed a $1.3 billion lawsuit against Giuliani, accusing him of defamation, what it's called his big lie. And note, I wanted to note this. That's right. I just remembered. Note how they waited until the next administration to do so. If this was the case, they could have done so initially. This has been popping off since November. Why the wait? For me, the idea is that if you're levying a claim, there are levels of the claim that you can then present that at least will give you viability, give you credibility. Presenting nothing, which is pretty much what Giuliani did, leaves you wide open for this. And the fact is they were waiting for him to present something, anything. And he literally presented nothing. He could have, and here's the thing is that you even, all right, let me stop. Because I will always go back to the ASOG report, the American Security Operations Group report. And you even had, a judge in, I believe, Michigan, right? Even though the report is public, a judge in Michigan put out a statement suggesting that it warranted more insight. Now, for me, the whole thing is very simple. You identify a particular discrepancy, and if it plays, it plays. The reality of the matter is that no one is talking about the election results. I'm talking about the election process, which is actually something Nancy Pelosi said herself in the 2000 election. But I digress. The Denver-based company Dominion filed an earlier lawsuit against pro-Trump lawyer Sidney Powell, whom the company accused of spreading false conspiracy theories, yada, yada, yada. A senior Dominion employee, Eric Coomer, also filed a defamation suit against the Trump campaign. None of this is going to fly. That's why you haven't heard anything. Actually, I remember the Sidney Powell lawsuit. That was filed at least a month ago. Haven't heard anything. But that's pretty much it. A group of prominent attorneys last week asked New York's judiciary to suspend his law license, Giuliani's. I forgot about that. Yeah, you don't ask supporters. Perhaps we should engage in trial by combat. That's not how that works. But yeah, so that's amusing. Rudy Giuliani admits his associates sought to bill Trump campaign at $20,000 per day to overturn election result. This is what has been called the great grift, right? What we're finding is people like Steve Bannon, who had a significant amount of money, millions of dollars, donated to him for his independent Build the Wall campaign that, didn't build the wall. And he just stole their money, went to prison, and then got pardoned. Oh my God. You had Judge Jeanine Pirro from Fox News. Her husband got caught in a money laundering scheme. He got pardoned. Rudy Giuliani, his own personal lawyer, admits his associates sought to bill the Trump campaign $20,000 per day to attempt to overturn the election result. The whole thing about it is that there's so much money to be made off of MAGA, and it's still being made. It's fascinating and disturbing. But Giuliani has admitted that his associates sought $20,000 per day from the Trump campaign in return for his efforts to overturn the election, representing a price hike of 10 times the usual sum. Well, of course, Donald Trump's personal lawyer has consistently denied requesting such a fee for a service following a Washington Post report suggesting the pair, previously fierce allies, had fallen out over demands for the exact amount, with the former president taking offense and ordering his aides not to pay it. But it emerged on Saturday that Mr. Giuliani reportedly conceded in a short phone interview with the Times that his associate, Maria Ryan, had in fact sent Trump campaign officials an email detailing such a fee shortly after Election Day. According to the Times, which has seen a copy of the email allegedly sent to at least 3 Trump campaign officials from a Giuliani partner's account, it stated the firm was drafting an engagement letter and, rather than a typical daily fee of $2,000, we will contract for $20,000 a day, which will include all of the expenses for Giuliani and his staff. Because you need a golden plane to fly on when you go to see a judge about a severe claim that you have no evidence for. Nice job. Anyway, so fast forwarding, Democrats end up winning Georgia. Biden ends up winning the presidency. And it seems like, other than an immediate reversal with the 17 EOs of Trump policy, that is decidedly partisan. That isn't to say I don't necessarily support the actions, but this is politics. We now have to move into the sort of micromanagement and movements of politics as usual. This isn't like this unified thing of everyone hating Trump anymore. We're now seeing the fight break, and this happens everywhere. This happens in anything. When 2 armies fight and one army loses, there is a power vacuum amongst the populace because the entire paradigm has shifted. It's the same thing that you're seeing here now, where you had Republicans who were either for or against Trump, right? And you had Democrats, all of which who were against Trump, minus maybe 1 or 2. You now see this breakdown where the Democrats and the Democrats within the Democrats, you have progressives and you have moderate blue dog Democrats fighting basically over deficit hawkery, things like Medicare for all, things like a $1,400, $2,000 check, things like consistent unemployment, things like, COVID, paid COVID leave, etc., a better stimulus, etc. And then you have the Republican Party now, which is fractured into conservative, contemporary GOP members and Trumpers. So, Democrats caught flat-footed by total control of Washington. We now have the situation where, if they're not going to use budget consolidation, budget reconciliation, if they're not going to use budget reconciliation, which apparently Trump used under his administration, if they're not going to use budget reconciliation, that means they're going to need to get the approval of 17 Republicans to sign on to anything. Okay. And I'm learning and growing with you as I continue to cover all of this. So as far as the Senate process goes, they need 30 hours, and that includes, all of the formalities, all of the announcing, all the whole process plus debate, in order to then have a bill come to the floor to be voted on. It's not anything that happens quickly. That's why everything moves so fucking slowly. Okay. So the reality of the matter is that every day they delay is more days that it will take to finally, once the process gets going, to go through the process to then finally have a vote. That being said, it seems like they don't have any grounding, any footing as to what they want to take on first. Whoopsies. And the first thing they seem to be doing is reducing the stimulus bill. I was just reading, it went from 1.9 to 1.1. You're seeing all this deficit hawkery crop up. Good Lord. All right. So the Democratic takeover of the White House and Congress is complete, but the truth is, says Politico, that the party was caught flat-footed by it. Almost no one expected Ossoff and Warnock to both win, let alone plan for how they'd run Washington if it happened. The lack of preparation is now causing confusion among congressional Democrats as to how they should exercise their newfound power. For example, Biden has specifically said he will not use budget reconciliation, whereas Sanders, who is head of the Budgetary Committee, is like, yeah, if Republicans aren't going to play ball, we're just going to do what needs doing, period. Conventional wisdom is that presidents have a small window of opportunity to make their mark with a big legislative achievement, or best case, 2. Timing is critical, as is sequencing. But beyond a desire to address the pandemic, unquestionably Biden's first priority, Democrats seem to be all over the place. Our Democratic sources say Biden's top two targets will be a COVID package and a massive infrastructure bill paired with clean energy policies, a nod to climate advocates. But Democrats are also talking about criminal justice and policing reform, as well as good governance proposals to clean up elections. See, the problem is that if you wanted something universal, there's a difference. Okay, here's the thing. There are three options. You can give the people what they want, which is how you got them elected, them being Ossoff and Warnock and yourself being Biden. You can go for something unifying like the infrastructure package, but tying it to something like clean energy, unless there's like tax write-offs and things like that for solar companies, wind companies. Unless you give them a corporate incentive, you're not going to get Republican support. Period. There's got to be money involved. If the Republicans are talking about, if everyone in the GOP is talking budget hawkery, and then you have blue dog Democrats talking budget hawkery, everything at this point seems to be about the money, other than progressives screaming what they usually are, Medicare for all, $2,000 checks, you know, what the people want, what got you elected in the first place. So the reality is that you can do something outright partisan like the immigration bill, the DACA bill for the 11 million DACA recipients becoming citizens. Listen, I don't have a problem with that. We've already talked about it on the show. But the problem is that that's not going to fly through normal channels. You're not going to get 17 Republicans on that. Utterly partisan. You can give the people what they need and want, which is what got you elected. The problem is that you're already seeing people like the president himself, Biden, suggesting he's not going to use budget reconciliation. So you're not going to get Republicans to sign on to a $1.9 trillion bill, which is why you saw it now. You're hearing talks, you're reading in the news about it decreasing to $1.1 trillion. That's going to trickle down inevitably to the personal checks and to the unemployment and to the paid COVID leave and to the maternity leave, the whole deal. That's going to trickle down. It's got to hit somewhere, all right? And then you can do something that is bipartisan, infrastructure. Everyone loves infrastructure. Everyone knows that our roadways are crumbling, our buildings are crumbling, et cetera, et cetera. So those really are your three options. You got to fucking do something. Do something. Please do something other than talk. I'll give him that. When he's in front of the camera, he's got energy now. I'll give him that. He was the fucking crypt keeper during his campaign. Seriously. Anyway, contrary to 2 years ago, when the party took the House and leaders articulated a plan for a series of major votes on guns and equality in the first few weeks of the year, no clear agenda has been presented to them by President Biden, according to interviews with half a dozen senior Democrats. In fact, Democrats aren't even on the same page about how to get Biden's $1.9 trillion COVID package through. Before Biden was sworn in, aides had been hashing out plans to use the fast-track reconciliation process to jam it through on a party-line vote. But now Democrats are pressing pause because Biden is, as one person called it, bipartisan curious. Gross, ineffective, and really just completely disconnected. That's not what you were saying you were going to do. Actually, he never said he was going to use, I don't believe he's ever said he was going to use budget reconciliation. But I mean, everyone else, Bernie Sanders, like everyone put these guys in office with the auspices that they were going to do what needs doing regardless of what Republicans were saying. Like, come on, guys. We know what you need to do to get what needs to, we know what you need to do to get what needs to be done completed. So do it. So anyway, bipartisan curious. Biden wants to reach across the aisle, to the chagrin of many senior Democrats eager to move quickly. Biden's aides reached out to moderate GOP Lisa Murkowski of Alaska this week. Oh, yes, Murkowski. And Democratic Senator Manchin of West Virginia says he hopes to talk to them over the weekend. Ugh, Manchin. Evil, King Manchin. Meanwhile, king of the brokest state in the union. Meanwhile, a third idea is percolating in the House, passing a narrower proposal of $1,400 stimulus and vaccine distribution assistance to provide quick relief and a win, or if all else fails, demonstrate to Biden that the GOP isn't going to play nice. That idea, however, is running into resistance in the Senate. The lack of clarity extends to immigration. Many Democrats privately concede that the massive bill introduced day one was mostly symbolic, a gesture to advocates that's unlikely to come to fruition. But on the Senate floor, Schumer, who helped write and pass a sweeping immigration bill in 2013, said doing so again was a very high priority and one of the most important things a Democratic Congress can do. Yeah. Yeah, that's not gonna happen. I mean, I don't say that like I say that cynically. I'm not, you know, it is what it is. That's just how Republicans are, or rather, that's how their base are. Because honestly, most politicians just do whatever it takes to remain in power. So that's really what that is. Um, Growing number of GOP senators oppose impeachment trial. Unfortunately, that doesn't matter. Well, I mean, it matters. Obviously, like I said, the Republican Party is fracturing into conservative contemporary GOPs and Trumpers, but it's coming. McConnell privately says he wants Trump gone as Republicans quietly mass around to convict him. Romney and Trump impeachment. If we're going to have unity, there must be accountability. Romney, who was shunned and excommunicated, of course he's gonna want accountability, quote unquote. But either way, they will get their desire because his impeachment is hitting the Senate. His trial is to begin February 8th. Here is the thing. It won't matter. It won't matter. He has created, through the celebrity of cult, the Trumpism that it's not going away. It is solidifying, if anything else. Okay. Second impeachment trial launches with questions over witnesses. Democrats are split on whether to hear new testimony on a deadly riot they lived through. Not even some Democrats are really interested in this. Okay. And the fact remains is that the power, unfortunately, that this figure has amassed is significant. FEC filing. MAGA Patriot Party incorporates in Texas. Local news, Local 12 reads, there's a new conservative political party in the Lone Star State. The FEC on Monday posted a notice of organization on behalf of the MAGA Patriot Party in San Antonio, Texas. Get ready. According to documents, the committee fundraises exclusively for the Donald J. Trump for President Political Action Committee. An organization calling itself the Patriot Party made headlines earlier this month for courting an endorsement from now former President Trump. Trump also floated the idea of forming his own party with the same moniker. It is not yet clear if this organization is officially linked to the now former president or is a separate entity entirely. So this is what I'm saying. This is actually something that Cigar and Cristobal said too. And this is the thing. I think everyone kind of figured this. It's not going anywhere. He's not going anywhere. Even if he doesn't form his own party, a party in his image will be formed. He will support it from afar. Probably not very far. He truly is the Darth Vader. It truly is like the Anakin. Well, see, here's the thing. Darth Vader became Anakin Skywalker again at the end. He's just Darth Vader. He's just like in every sense of the word. And well, see the Darth Vader analogy. I always loved the Darth Vader analogy because the change, right, the shakeup that we thought Barack Obama was going to bring didn't happen. The change, the shakeup that folks thought Trump was going to bring didn't happen. The thing about the difference here is that we saw a consistency, of establishment politics under Obama, and we just saw mayhem and macabre under Trump. I don't know. We're in a position now where because of Trump, we have more progressives in the Democratic Party than I think, at least in my lifetime, there has been. Were it not for the Democratic Party, we could have had Bernie Sanders at least on the Democratic ticket, but the Democratic Party ate its own. That's not the first time they've done it to Sanders either. It's not the first time they've done it. Period. Cynthia McKinney. Anyway, so like it's this weird conundrum where we got a glimpse into what happens when the Democratic Party is basically set on fire. Unfortunately, the Republican Party set itself on fire in doing this, in bringing, and that's the thing. It's not just the Republican Party, right? People, individuals voted for this guy. they voted for this entity, this person. So part of it really is the resentment from the change that we were hoping for never occurring, and in fact more of the same, more of the worst still occurring. It's just, from one hand you're getting it with a facade and a veneer, and with the other hand you're getting it in your face with all the powder, the pimp hand powder. Wow. So, but midterms are going to be crazy. GOP Ohio Senator Portman not seeking re-election, cites gridlock. Here's the thing, right? So this guy, Senator Rob Portman, said Monday he won't seek re-election in his third term in 2022, expressing dismay with deep partisanship and dysfunction in American politics, right? You aren't... Oh, I just looked over and saw an article. Trump shuns ex-president's club and the feeling is mutual. I honestly didn't even consider that, because I'm on the new administration. I don't give a fuck about it. I never really gave a fuck about this dude. He just leaves chaos in his wake, and we all just kind of have to deal with it. But I didn't think, there is an ex-president's club, and they all go around and they talk with each other, and they like have like dinners, and they get... You ain't going to that shit, man. Everybody wants you there. That's too funny. I mean, it's funny, but it's like, damn, he's just like, I can't imagine being hated around the world. I mean, and there's the thing. It's not like it's not like all 8 billion of us hate him, but like most of the world. and you know, I think sociologists will have a great time looking into the mind state of an executive narcissist. I mean, they already have, but it's after the fact, after when your importance has been clearly removed from your face, right in front of you. You're nothing now. What does a narcissist do? How do you face it? Is there cognitive dissonance? Will he kill himself? No, he's not. Let me stop. I'm just kidding. But seriously, I do wonder that. How does a narcissist who is faced with their own like extinction, their own importance being lost, what do they do? How do they deny something like that? But I digress. The midterms 2022 are going to be crazy. But this Senator Rob Portman, whom I've never heard of, he's leaving because of the deep partisanship and dysfunction in American politics. That's exactly why you stay, right? That's exactly why I continue to try and speak to proliferate discourse and dialogue. If you feel like people are too entrenched, then you have to be the voice in the wilderness that calls for dialogue and for communication. You don't just quit. I don't want to call you a coward, but the statement would be to remain and to stand up, not to scurry off into the dark. Like, that's not, I don't know. I understand if he feels like he does not have the tenacity, the energy, the conviction, the wherewithal, the fortitude, then maybe you should get the fuck out. But I'm just saying, me personally, I would feel because it's one of those things where like it's a duty that's thrusted upon you. Like, you have this obligation, being in the position that you're in, to do some work now. Oh no, gee golly, now you actually have to like stand up for your principles. Oh no, you may get called out by your own party. Gee golly willikers. Oh no. The price of admission in this world is truly standing up for your convictions. Nobody wants to pay that shit. It's unbelievable. And I'm trying to not be upset because I get it. Don't mind that. My anger is rupturing the walls. No, I understand. I understand the desire to omit yourself, to just stand back and say, you know what? I don't really want a part of this animosity. This is tiresome and it's toxic as all hell, right? Your very words are noxious, but like, that's why you remain there, to try and quell the poison that's in the well. Yes, all rhyme intended. But that's what he's doing, and I understand that, but that's definitely going to that's going to in fact make things much worse, especially since it's Ohio. That's going to make things much, much worse. Republicans have 20 seats up for re-election in 2022 compared to 14 for the Democrats. Those GOP seats include presidential battlegrounds, Wisconsin, where Trump narrowly lost in November, and Florida, where he won by more than 3 percentage points. And now Ohio, a perennial battleground state for decades, has become more reliably Republican, carried by Trump more than 8% points in 2016 and 2020. Portman, like many mainstream GOP lawmakers viewed as insufficiently supportive of Trump, was considered likely to face a primary challenge from the right. I see. The Trumpers were going to primary him anyway. Interesting. So basically, what we'll see is it'll be a referendum on the ability of the Democratic Senate, the democratically slightly controlled Senate, as to whether or not Ohio, although it's been reliably around 8 to 10 percentage points Republican, to see whether they can hold the state. So yeah, midterms are going to be fun, especially to see if the GOP puts up a Trumper, if a Trumper rises through the ranks. Because yeah, if the state government, if the state Republican, the state Ohio Republican Party is a Trumper party, then there you go. You recently, today I believe, or yesterday, either today or yesterday, had Trump, I think, down in Arizona to support the state Republican Party member chair who just won, a female, a lady whose name I can't remember. She won by a slim majority. Trump did a video, but the video got her the win. Now, the whole thing is like how strong of a Trumper base is existent within the Republican Party. And the thing is like, even, I think the last poll I read was something like 68, 78% of those polled, out of the Republicans polled, supported Trump. The fact remains, even if you have a part of the Republican Party, you still don't have enough across two parties to make it in the 2024 election. So that's the whole point, is that you are not going to get enough of a crossover from those that you need, let alone those within your own party, to come back in 2024. I'm not too worried about Trump himself, but a Trump-like politician, someone with very similar economic domestic foreign policy ideology, but less of an asshole. Because I often talk about people, it's like when I talk to people about Trump, most of the time it's about his candor and not his policies that they speak of. So it's like, basically, if you had Barack Obama with Trump's policies, you telling me that you'd be more accepting of him? If all we're being bothered by is his tweets and his manners, or lack thereof? That's what I mean. Policy. But we are coming to the end of the show, and of course, I still have a bunch of crap to cover. I haven't covered any of the COVID news. Merrick ends its COVID vaccination program, citing inferior immune responses. Merck, not Merrick. So we already know, at least they're honest and they just gave up on the process. But surprise, surprise, the UK variant of COVID may actually be more deadly after all. Gee golly willikers, says BBC News, minus the gee golly willikers. That's just a bunch of articles about how it could be deadlier. Mass COVID-19 screening in Beijing begins after 2 cases of the Britain strain were found. And apparently they're doing, I read somewhere they're doing anal tests, but you didn't hear that from me. Because it can last within your rectum longer. Walmart to offer 7-day COVID vaccination service at U.S. pharmacies. There's just other things. I will get to it. I will get to it eventually. Doctors forge ahead to allay fears about COVID-19 vaccines, because they have to allay your fears. The whole fact of the matter is Moderna. It all comes down to this. World Health Organization said that COVID-19 is endemic. I've been saying literally since the first show that I made in November, and since before then, before I did the podcast, it's entered the biosphere. It's a coronavirus. Like any other coronavirus, it's going to be a seasonal thing that we're going to have to deal with, like cold, like flu, and it will mutate like cold and like flu. Now, hopefully, does it mutate to become deadlier, which we'll read about that hopefully tomorrow. But COVID-19 is not going anywhere. And now the Moderna CEO agrees as well. He offers a bleak assessment of COVID-19. Virus is to stay with the world forever. Moderna CEO Stephanie Bancel on Monday trumpeted new data showing his company's vaccine remains effective in battling new coronavirus variants, even as he painted a long road ahead in the war against the pandemic. The biotech firm's study showed what it called protective immune responses to both the variant first documented in the UK and the variant seen in South Africa. Yet Bansal gave a stark assessment of the pandemic, saying there's good reason to expect a need for ongoing booster shots to protect against mutations that could propagate other variants of SARS-CoV-2. I believe SARS-CoV-2 is going to stay with humans forever. And on that note, please like, share, and subscribe. And yeah, be well to yourself and to each other. Take care.